So let's talk about patterns and how easy they are to make in Illustrator. So, very simple. All you have to do is create a shape or multiple shapes and tell the program that you want it to be a pattern. It's really as simple as that. So you can see here, like if I've taken just a square and a rectangle, um, I'll even make this a little bit transparent so you can see here. I can take these two shapes, select them both, object, pattern, make. Once you say that, it's going to ask you if you're sure you want to add this to your swatches panel. Yes. And boom, there it goes. It tells you, it shows you a little preview of what your pattern will look like. And you have this little box over here that shows up that is your pattern options. You can also get to your pattern options by going up to window and looking at pattern options underneath that. But you have a whole bunch of options here on what you can do with this pattern. Everything that you see that's in between these elements of your pattern is going to be negative space that's transparent, seeing through to the background. So if you don't want your pattern to be able to be seen through, then you're going to want to make this pattern move closer together. And you can do that by either changing if it's gridded or bricked. You can also change this offset is really just showing you in your preview. It doesn't have anything really to do with actually, the offset does have anything to do. It's just kind of the fraction of the offset. But right here, your copies, this is just for preview only. It's not for what the actual pattern will be. So anyways, back to this. So we're bricking it. We're going to do a half offset, and we can change our dimensions of how close and how width and height of how close my pattern is to itself. So you can overlap it and move it. What I like to do besides messing with these numbers, so for example, I can say like 4 by 5 here, and you can see that it overlaps them. But I like to use this little box up here where it's the pattern tile tool, and this allows you to manually move your pattern around based on how much negative space you'd like with your pattern. So this is a really cool way to do it. And then you also have a choice here of how your pattern would overlap. So what part of the pattern is going to be on top versus on the bottom. So maybe you want it to end up being like this, and you say, okay, yes, I'm good. And all you have to do is say done. And now it reverts you back. You still have these two elements, but if you were to take another tool, say a rectangle tool, pull it on your entire background, and then you'd come over here to your swatches window, and you can see right here, it's saved that pattern that I just made. And in that particular case, I made it so that it was not transparent, so you can't see through it. Okay. Another thing you could do though for patterns is you can make a more complex shape. So I made this one, which is made up of like, I don't know, like 5 to 10 shapes overlapping each other. And if I take this shape here and I say object, again, I'm grabbing all of them. Object, pattern, make. Okay. Same thing here. I can change it if it's bricked or if it is gridded, how far offset it is. I'm going to use this manual button right here so I can adjust, because I'd like this to really overlap itself and be a more complex pattern. But there is going to be some negative space in this piece. And I like that. I want this to be really a full pattern. I do want to mess around with what's on top. I like that. And I'm going to say done. And so with that, I'm going to move this off to the side, and I pull a rectangle over my entire background. And I'm going to fill it with the pattern that just populated my swatches panel, and there it is. And so if I wanted to put a different color behind that, all I would have to do is just, I'm going to move this off to the side for a second, pull a rectangle over the whole piece, fill that with a solid color. So let me do something that you would be able to see. So maybe a blue. And then I would pull this back on top of it, and I need to change my layer order here. And you can see that color behind it now. So that allows that pattern to have some depth and transparency. The last thing I want you to see about patterns is when you move the pattern tiles around. So for example, with this one right here, see how right now I'm able to squish it and make it really, really small, or pull it apart and make it really large. That's because I have this button checked. So if I go under Illustrator and I go to Preferences, General, this button right here that says Transform Pattern Tiles, if it is checked, it allows you to transform, meaning pull it and squeeze it and all that stuff, and make your pattern bigger or smaller. But watch what happens if I uncheck that button. If I say Illustrator Preferences, General, and I uncheck Transform Pattern Tile, say OK. Now watch my pattern when I move it. The pattern stays the same underneath, and it's like what happens is I'm almost just looking through a window at the pattern, and the pattern does not move. So personally, I like to have that box checked because I like to have that power over my patterns. But it's totally up to you, whatever works for you. So Preferences, General, I'm just going to check that back on again for myself. And have fun with patterns. Thank you.